Between the two of them, the inside of Coates, Parker gets too heavily involved. And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Welcome, one and all, to the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship powered by VRRC. You join us for what I believe is round 6 of the championship at Thruxton over in Andover, of course. One of the fastest circuits that you can possibly hope to dream of around any sort of country in all of the world, basically. It's absolutely flat out for, I would say, probably about 90% of it. And we're going to talk quite a lot about that as we go through the evening. Last week, we were at Snetterton. We'll talk about who scored the most points and all the drama about that in a couple of minutes' time. But we've been to Walton Park, Croft, Brands Hatch, and of course, we opened the series at Donington Park. If we're on round 6, that must mean we've only got 2 rounds left, Brands Hatch and Silverstone GP. In fact, Brands Hatch GP as well. So it's nice to seal off the end of this touring car season with the probably most famous 2 tracks in all of motorsport in terms of British tracks anyway. My name is Jack Oliphant. Unfortunately, I'm not joined by Andy McEwen this evening. Apparently, he's got a little bit of a cold. So I'm joined alongside me is Lewis Edwards back in the commentary box for the second time this series. Lewis, how the devil are we?
Yeah, Super Sub has struck yet again. We are standing in for Andy. We obviously hope he gets better soon, and you get to hear his wonderful commentating on rounds 7 and 8. But yeah, Thruxton, as I think Jeremy Clarkson misquoted as the fastest circuit in Europe, it's loved by everyone, and I think it's going to produce some really close and exciting racing this evening.
Yes, but everyone now knows it as the fastest because he said it, didn't they? So I tend to try and stick with it anyway. But it is fast, it's frantic, and it's damn hard to get the maximum out of the car. It may seem like it's fairly easy, just put your foot down and start turning, but there is a lot more to it than that. I've been assured anyway by Lewis. I've tried to drive in real life, and I didn't do a particularly good job of it, but we are here for the simulated version, of course. Right, but we were at Snetterton a week ago, a track that I do quite like, and Elliot Dalton-Ayres, again, I wouldn't say quite as sneaky this time. We did note him doing very well at Snetterton, but he came away with the most amount of points, 42 to his name. Joel Lask was in second place. Unfortunately, Joel is not racing with us tonight, and I'm just trying to find the excuse. Apparently, he's watching Coldplay in Manchester. Well, I would rather be here. It'd be a lot less boring than watching Coldplay. Anyway, Nicky Taylor was in third. He came away with 34 points. And the driver of the round was also Elliot Dalton-Ayres, as we see some screenshots in the background there by Eric Axelson and Kyle Felvis. But all in all, Lewis, it was an entertaining evening's racing. Snetterton is a little bit more technical than the likes of Thruxton, but that sort of caused all the more drama, really.
Yeah, I think it did. We saw less of the just out-and-out chaos that we saw in Alton Park. We saw a lot more tactical racing. We saw a lot more bold overtakes that were being made cleanly and came off nicely. And I think Elliot this time didn't quite manage to go as under the radar, but still managed to stay out of trouble. Now Joel has decided to swap the song Paradise instead of the track Paradise that is Thruxton. And Nicky's in third their last round. He's looking quick again at the moment in the practice time, so I think he's going to be on for another good result. And of course, we gave the driver of the round to Elliot as well, and that really helped him in the championship as he's closed the gap on Jack now.
Yes, the championship I was about to swerve my way into as I was frantically looking at the schedule to see actually what was next, because, of course, last week me and Andy sort of ignored your lovely schedule. But here we are. Jack Smith has got 7-point lead. Now, that was a lot bigger this time last week. But Elliot Dalton-Ayres managing to close that one up. I don't think Jack Smith had a particularly enjoyable Snetterton. But equally, he had a pretty good rounds up until then. So he's still in the lead of this by 7. But Elliot Dalton-Ayres in practice is going very quickly indeed, and we're going to have to start actually looking at him now. Kyle Felvis is in third, but that fight for the bottom step of the podium in the championship is really heating up. You got Kyle Felvis, you got Scott Bugner, you got Oliver Gibson, all within 3 points of each other, and then Joel Lask, Josh Martin, Eric Axelson, all trying to nip at the heels of the top 5, which is, of course, where we lead on to our prizes, because there is prizes for the top 5. First place, the Cammus Simulation wheelbase and a shiny trophy as well. Second place, the Aegon 34-inch gaming display and a shiny trophy, but slightly less big. And third place gets the Thrustmaster handbrake and shifter, and you guessed it, a smaller, shiny though trophy, equally shiny but not so equal in size. Fourth place is 2 hours of sim practice at the VRRC Sim Centre. Trust me, that is a lot harder to say than you think. Fifth place is 1 hour sim practice at the VRRC Sim Centre. And there's also, of course, the prize draw, where if you participate in 7 or more of the 8-round championship, and you don't finish inside the top 5, 2 drivers will be getting entered into the drawn out of the prize draw, and they will win 1 hour of sim practice at the VRRC Sim Centre. Trust me, that is a hell of a tongue twister. You also have driver of the rounds with NGK jackets up for grabs. The driver of the round will also get a medal and an NGK jacket. Thank you very much, NGK, for getting involved in this championship. And the top scorer of the evening, say Elliot Dalton-Ayres last week, will get a lovely NGK hat. Maybe not so needed with the weather as it is at the moment, but trust me, this is Britain. Next week it'll be downpours or snow or mist or something along those lines, so I'm sure everybody will be enjoying the NGK merch. There's also the top viewer, which I believe we forgot to actually read out. We did talk about it in the Discord, and we will let you know who it was when I find it back, when I scroll up through the chat. But we did actually nominate it to some people, so we will get that out to those people for last week's broadcast, and we'll try not to forget it for this week's broadcast. But Lewis, I think that's about all we've got to get through. Qualifying is just about to get underway, so why don't we have a look at yourself doing a lovely hot lap in one of these touring cars around the famous Thruxton circuit.
Hello and welcome to Thruxton for round 6 of the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship Season 4 on the hybrid into turn 1. We're going to take a very small lift on the apex, but without the hybrid it's going to be comfortably flat out for everybody. Back over to the left hand side, you're going to look out for this 200 marker board. You're going to brake just after that down into third, using lots of the apex curve, making sure we can sacrifice this right hander and then sacrifice this left hander to make sure that this right hander here you get a nice quick exit out of. We've got quite a long flat out section here. We're back on the hybrid. Now this left-hander is easily flat out. You want to use as little steering lock as possible. Make sure not to scrub the tyres. Take a little lift quite early in the corner for this right-hander so you can get back to the power really nicely, as we've got another long flat out section here. Now there's a little bit flat curbing on the apex of this right-hander. You want to take all of that but not the grass, and the same on the exit, as that will mean you can open up the corner as much as possible without cancelling out any good momentum you've got. Now into the final chicane already. I'm going to brake before that marker board on the left-hand side. I take quite an early apex and floor the throttle as early as I can to try and power through the chicane, and that completes a lap of Thruxton.
And we are back for some on-shot... Well, actually, we just saw the track, didn't we? We're on-track action now for the first time, live. And Carl Felvis, Andy Dorman, Elliot Dalton-Ayres, Craig Curtis. Pretty much the entire field has actually made it out to play. Jack Smith is trailing a little bit further behind, but no one has set a time yet. This is just an outlap, of course, because we have pretty much just started. As we're seeing Elliot Dalton-Ayres coming across the line to start his flying lap. Now, Lewis, you have just reminded me of where you store all the information on who gets the top supporters and driving the rounds and everything like that. And it was Elaine Gibson who ended up winning our prize for last week for the top supporter. There was a lot of there was quite a few reasons, but one of them was slight sympathy towards the fact that Oliver Gibson just didn't seem to have any luck, and she seemed to be drowning her sorrows. We thought maybe an NGK jacket might help that out a little bit.
Yeah, I think Oliver had a very unlucky round. It seemed like he's been pretty lucky throughout the course of the season, and maybe that one round was just going to be his dose of bad luck for the whole season, which in a season with one dropped round is exactly the way you'd want it to be. So he's going to be looking to rebound from that here at Thruxton, and so will Jack, who had a pretty suboptimal round by his very high standards, which let Elliot close in, and hopefully he's going to take the fight to Elliot today.
Yes, we'll have to wait and see how they all come through qualifying, because of course practice is one thing, qualifying is quite something else, isn't it? You can do over 100 laps in practice, and my god, some people do well over 200 laps in practice. Some people only turn up and do about 20, but qualifying is really where it starts to count, doesn't it? Of course, you do score points in qualifying, but only a small amount of points compared to the actual race. But at Thruxton, a circuit like this, we're overtaking, well, you only hit the brakes twice in the entire lap, so therefore really overtaking only happens potentially twice in the entire lap. You really do want to qualify well. But there's lots of slipstreaming available here, isn't there, Lewis? I mean, I think we will, anytime we've come to Thruxton, or anytime anybody watches it in real life as well. I mean, I remember an absolutely brilliant historic mini race that was here supporting the touring cars once in real life, and my God, they stole the show, honestly. There was about 15 overtakes each and every lap just into that final corner. We might not see that kind of severity tonight, but slipstreaming and that late braking zone, that's certainly going to play a factor.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the hybrid system as well, I think it's going to enable more overtakes into places where there might not be a braking zone at the next corner. Typically, as you said, you'll see moves into that final chicane that we're seeing now and into the chicane in the first part of the lap. But we might see people springing some moves with a bit of slipstream and hybrid to add to those overtaking opportunities that are already there.
Yeah, and they'll probably add some braking zones that aren't normally there as well, because of course around Thruxton you're already going flat out, and if you know your braking zone from without the use of the hybrid, and then all of a sudden you add X amount of horsepower, X amount of miles per hour going down the straight, they're all slightly different, then the braking zone is going to certainly change. So the driver's going to have to look out for that, try not to miss their apexes, because if you go straight on at any of these chicanes, obviously you've got to get that time in those places that you gain back, of course. There is Eric Axelson, who's just gone to the top of the timings. We are expecting him to fall quite quickly. In fact, Kyle Felvers has just gone purple through Sector 1. Eric Axelson has bettered himself, so is Andy Carroll, so is Craig Curtis. Jack Smith's inside the top 10 for the time being. How long may that last? We'll have to wait and see. But you can see through Eric Axelson's input, even through Church Corner, easily one of the most scary corners in all of motorsport. You are flat out, blind apex, smash the curb, try and get over it, and try and keep your foot flat to the floor all at the same time. It's very difficult, and it's just all about scrubbing the least amount of speed off. You want to be making sure that you turn the wheel only once and the least amount of angle through that turn as well. Eric Axelson purples Sector 3. Carl Felvis, as I said, purpling Sector 1. What can he do over the line, though, is the big question. Can he get onto that pole position? Can he get at least onto the front row? He's third at the moment. Elliot Daltonaire just had a Sector 3 taken away from him, and Kyle Felvis will not be getting onto the front row with this current lap, because for some reason, he's going very slowly, Lewis.
I think he might be cooling the tyres, and interestingly, actually, when doing that track guide, which everybody saw, I was experimenting with different ways you can heat up the tyres and get them into the window, and there are plenty of different approaches, but it seems like most people have gone for just floor it out the pits and just gun it round and fuel it until you think the tyres are going to go off. But what I actually found was quicker was to gun it round the outlap, then slow down, keep the tyres at the right wear rate, so they're at 100% tyre wear, so you've got full grip, but begin to bring the temperature down through that second kind of preparation lap, and then on the third lap out of the pits, that's when you go for your flying lap. So maybe we'll see some people do that towards the end of the session, or if they're listening to the broadcast and think, ooh, might need to give that a try. But it's interesting to see there are different approaches some drivers can take.
I was going to say, I remember once upon a time where someone said that Andy was the lead commentator for VRRC and I was supposedly the driving expert. I am certainly not one to think about all that sort of thing. I will just go out, I will gun it round as most people do, and hope that I can hook a lap together that is even semi-near what could be my optimal for qualifying, because 15 minutes really isn't that long a time. Not aliens like you, as the BMW smashes the wall, and I think smashes the wall again, actually, on their way in. Jack Smith, where is Jack currently sat in 11th place, and that's Kyle Felvis going around in a bit of a pirouette. What happened there, Lewis?
I think he just over-pushed it into the final chicane on the exit there, was just really going for that run out the final corner to get the lap time in, and it's so easy to just run onto the grass, and then if you hit any of the marker boards on the exit, I think they're quick fit advertising boards on the exit, they will be quite lethal. You won't get any clips of the cars just smashing straight through them like you do on the real track. The boards win in the fight versus the car and the sim at the moment.
Well, to be fair, advertising's got to stay advertising. You know what I mean? Like, it's the drivers shouldn't really be that far off the track, should they? So you might as well get punished for it. Here is Nicky Taylor, who's currently sat on pole, and with another purple sector 1. Looks to try and improve that. His sector 2 hasn't been quite as good, the alarm company car. But as he turns into the final chicane, let's see what he can muster. I think we've got Eric Axelson on second place. Elliot Dalton is currently sat in third. As Nicky Taylor crosses the line, is it going to be an improvement? I think it is at a 1:11.229, 2.5 tenths quicker than Eric Axelson, who's currently shares the front row with Nicky Taylor. We got Jordan Taylor, not too bad. He's doing in 6th place. Oliver Gibson has improved from last week, hasn't he? Lewis, 5th place. Is that a slight surprise for you? Is that where you were expecting him to be? And Lee Morgan in 10th. There's quite a few drivers. Craig Curtis in 8th, actually. Quite a few drivers doing very well and beating some regulars.
Yeah, I think the thing with Thruxton is that I kind of liken it to the Indy 500 a little bit. The Indy 500, if you didn't watch last weekend just gone, the driver who won the Indy 500 qualified, I think, about 17th on the grid. And the drivers on the front row were nowhere near winning the race at the end. It's really a race where you have to race your way through. Well, it sounds obvious when you say it, but if you compare to Monaco, that's kind of, your qualifying defines how your race weekend's going to go. In tracks
it's
like
the most entertaining part as well.
Yeah, in Monaco, qualifying is great, and in the races like the Indy 500 and races at Thruxton, the racing element of it is much more important, and it's really enjoyable to watch because drivers have to fight their way through the race because everybody is so similar on pace, because there's not really many places where a driver can make that difference. So over a race, the difference comes from who can make the moves when it counts and who can keep on the perfect line bang on every single lap.
Yeah, absolutely right, and I'm hoping actually that you are correct as well in your theory that this will be slightly closer to the Indy 500 than it is to the Monaco Grand Prix, because otherwise we're going to have 2 very boring races up and coming. But I'm sure that won't be the case. Elliot Dalton is still in 3rd place. He went quicker in sector 1 and 2, but in sector 3, it wasn't slow, but it wasn't quick enough to get anywhere near the likes of Eric Axelson. Now, very quickly here, Lewis, because I know you are, you're quite enthusiastic about all things sim racing, the little details and everything like that, but me and Andy every week we bang on about the track state, but around Thruxton 1% is quite important, isn't it? Because realistically you are going flat out, you're trying to lean on the tyres as much as possible. You really do need all the grip you can possibly get to be the latest breaker and to try and commit the most amount of speed. And as we go through qualifying, we're expecting them to get a little bit quicker and quicker and quicker. With only 4 minutes left, Nicky Taylor setting purple times. Are we starting to see the track in its best state?
I think it is a combination of that and to do with the drivers just getting their eye in for the track. They're in the rhythm now. They've got a fair few banker laps in the bank already, and they're really pushing on now. They can feel where the limit is. They're beginning to push their luck on how far to the edge of the track they can go. They're beginning to sew the laps up together, and I think that, coupled with the fact the track state, as you said, is getting better. We're now at 99%, as Rich Hayden has informed me. It'll help your tyre temperatures, which are quite important around here. The tyres do love to get very, very hot. So that track state and that extra grip will keep those cool. You're in the zone, you relax, you're a bit smoother, which means you just carry the speed and keep the car settled. It's all of those factors all coming into one at the same time, and that's why we're seeing these improvements now.
Yeah, well, Nicky Taylor, as I said, did set a purple sector 1, but he ended up in the pit lane, whereas Eric Axelson set a purple sector 2, but didn't improve. But he has just gone green in sector 1, so maybe Eric Axelson is on for a late charge to try and close that gap. 2.5 tenths roughly is the gap that he does have to close. Nicky Taylor, I think, is out and about now, out of the pits and trying to maybe get into a bit of traffic with Jordan Taylor up into third place as well, ahead of Kyle Felvers, his teammate, of course. Elliot Dalton-Ayres is now down to 5th. Josh Martin up to 6th, and of course, that's apparently a little bit better than Dave was expecting. But the way Dave's support has been going over the past couple of weeks, I'm amazed he's even looking for Josh Martin's name anymore. I think I thought he just jumped ship and supported whoever was in the top 5. But that is arguably, Josh Martin is very close to it, so maybe he will be supporting him. Eric is on it, and Eric is in the wall. That is not, it's the grimace of a man who knows he just messed up, which is a bit of a shame because he was going relatively quickly through Sector 1, and his Sector 2 wasn't the end of the world. But I imagine, Lewis, that although the cars are built pretty strong on this sim, that's going to be his qualifying finish.
Yeah, I don't think that car's in optimal shape, if I'm honest.
No.
As we were saying, Josh Martin's doing better than Dave expectations. He's then gone and cursed Eric, so it seems like one of those two Mean Green Racing Team cars will always forever be disappointing Dave at the moment. They can't seem to both get it right at once. So long live the curse of one of them not doing so well. But Eric was up on Nicky's lap by about half a tenth up until that point. How crucial could that be?
Yeah, well, if your guess of the race being like the Indy 500 is anything to go by, it won't matter one bit. Jack Smith has just gone quick enough to put himself into 6th position, and is that Jordan Taylor trying to tow Kyle Felvers along? I think it was a little bit, then he jumps out of the way. They swap over for one last lap, and there's a driver actually on the left-hand side. Now, who was that? It was Andy Dorman, who's currently just sat on the outside. No idea why he's just sat there, but Andy Dorman will not be completing this qualifying session. Kyle Felvers comes across the line and goes on to the front row of the grid, and Eric Axelsson will now be kicking himself that he messed up the final corner in what was potentially a pole position lap time, because he's now been demoted to the second row of the grid. And unfortunately for Eric Axelsson and pretty much everybody on the second row of the grid, that may well put you in the clutches of a demon start from Jack Smith, who's currently in 6th place. We know those rear wheel drives love to get away off the line very sharply indeed. Josh Martin is in 6th place. Oliver Gibson still in the top 8. Paul Laramie in 9th and Craig Curtis in 10th. But Nicky Taylor seems to be surviving all kinds of questions to keep his pole position to himself for the time being, whereas some of the other drivers that maybe we're seeing used to seeing slightly higher up. Andy Carroll just outside the top 10 as well. And Lee Morgan, I thought maybe he could pull something out the bag here. He's in 12th at the moment. Andy Dorman, who's off the side of the road, is, he's all the way down in 13th place. Nicky Taylor has just gone purple in Sector 1. Eric Axelsson has, he's in the pit lane, so is Elliot Dalton-Ayres, so they won't be improving, but Nicky Taylor can secure that pole position. He's only holding it by 0.04 of a second ahead of Kyle Felvers as they head towards the final complex of corners. Is Jordan Taylor getting the tow from Kyle Felvers this lap, considering they returned the favour one lap ago? It doesn't look like it, because Nicky Taylor is actually chasing them down as he goes through the final chicane. What's he got in the locker? Nicky Taylor for pole position. And I think that's going to be good enough. A 2.5, nearly 0.3 of a second now ahead of Kyle Felvers. And by the looks of Felvers' Sector 1, he's not got it in the locker. Jordan Taylor did set a purple Sector 3, but it was only good enough for 4th place. Eric Axelsson, obviously in the pit, he won't be finishing. Oliver Gibson, I think, has taken the checkered flag, as well as we finally watch Jack Smith, our championship leader, currently in 6th, I believe, and he stays in 6th. Josh Martin is just clinging on to the inside of the top 10. He's not clinging on to the track, though. He's off the track there, just in the background. Not sure what he's doing, but he's not going any faster, that's for sure. We will chat to our pole position man, Nicky Taylor, for what seems like about the 3rd or 4th time, I think, so far in this championship, just on the other side of this break. And welcome back, everybody. And I've got, for the third time in a row, Nikki Taylor here for a pole position interview. Nikki, that was a hell of a lap at the end there. And you were just telling us that you didn't even have the toe to help either or anything like that. So, I mean, I know you just said you didn't know what the difference was, but can you sort of put your finger on anything that might have just been that extra little bit that you had in the locker?
To be honest, I'm pretty sure it's just fuel. Like the lap was there and on for it at the start of quali. We tried initially with HFT. Trying to do the toe, and it wasn't working because we were all just tripping over each other a bit. So we all decided to go our own separate ways, and my pace was quite strong. And then just screwed my lap a bit on like 4 minutes to go. So I just whacked in like basically nothing on fuel. And then eventually, with nothing on fuel, just kind of kept working towards it and was 2.5 tenths up through church. And then thought, this is quite good. So yeah, it's going quite well. I've gone from not being able to get a pole to save my life to getting 3 in a row. So this is going quite well.
I was going to say, and when you tend to have pole, from memory as well, because Andy keeps all the stats, I'll be honest, so I don't have them, but you tend to convert them in race 1, I believe. At Alton Park, you certainly did. I believe at Snetterton, you did. Race 2, obviously, we won't talk about that so much, but are you hoping here at Thruxton that it'll be a repeat prescription? Because I imagine it's going to be a bit more difficult.
Normally, I would say it would be a bit more difficult, but I have got Kyle and Jordan right near me, and I know Eric's there, but I have faith in Jordan getting past early, and then us all working together. And Kyle, I have full faith in because I've had faith in him from all the championships we've done previously. So I think this one should be quite all right and quite chilled, but I'm more worried about race 2 because over the last 3 weeks when I've got pole, my race 2 has been appalling. So if I can get that right and not DNF this time, then we'll be good.
Yes, quite often finishing the races does help. Who was that who just walked into the background of the shot then as well?
I don't know. I think it was either my mum or dad. I wasn't really paying attention.
I thought they were going to bend down and give us a wave or something into the camera. That's a bit of a shame. But
oh, no. They're just dropping me off my drinks because, yeah.
Try and keep you hydrated. You're not in the suit this time. Did you decide that was a bit of a bad idea last time?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that hot here, to be fair, in Norwich, but it's still warm enough. So I was like, yeah, no, Thruxton's going to be sweating every single lap, so I'll try and keep the clothing layers to a minimum.
That's probably best. Ted was probably complaining about the smell last week. You got HFT 1, 2, and 4, obviously, with an Eric Axelson always being the thorn of the side of the HFT team, it seems. That was a pretty big lockout. Was there lots of practice going through the week, or did you all just have it dialed in?
I was attempting to get us to do a load of practice, but to be honest, we haven't really done all team practice with the toes or anything until literally about 2 hours before tonight. 2 hours before the race tonight. So yeah, it's a little bit of practice, but the little bit of practice worked. So I'm happy with the team, and we're doing well. So let's try and make it HFT 1, 2, 3 in whatever order.
Well, I was going to say, you seem to have set yourself up quite nicely there. You've obviously got Elliot Dalton-Ayres and Jack Smith. You can't forget about either of them as well. Good luck, Nicky, for the race ahead. Is there anybody you'd like to give a shout-out to before we let you go?
Just my sponsors with the alarm company and also my mum and dad. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, good luck to you, and give us a high five to Ted as well when you get the chance. And we never know, if anything like the last 2 weeks has been, we'll be chatting to you after race 1.
Oh,
and that was Nicky Taylor coming in to have a quick chat to us. Lewis, he's been pretty unstoppable once he gets into the lead, hasn't he? But and he says he's got his mates around him. But surely, you know, in motorsport, mates, teammates, they start to become frenemies at some point. When do you think that's going to turn?
Well, it's already happened in the past between these guys, so there's every possibility it's going to happen again in this very race. So I think Eric is going to be egging them on in whatever way he can to fight with each other. But the main difficulty for everyone else has been Nicky's just disappeared immediately in the past, so they're going to have to find a way to put pressure on him immediately. Otherwise, he's very likely to just drive away from them.
He is indeed, yes. If anybody's wondering on the championship standing, Nicky Taylor is actually sat in 10th, I believe, whereas Kyle Felvis is sat in 3rd, and Kyle will be very keen to try and catch up to the likes of Elliot Dalton-Ayres and Jack Smith, which is why I'm thinking I'm probably not quite as confident in Kyle Felvis being as quiet as Nicky is hoping he'll be, because if there's a race win on, he has extra points to be bagged and everything like that, and as I said, Jack Smith down in 6th position, Elliot Dalton-Ayres in 5th. Kyle can see a lot of points coming his way. If he just gets ahead of his former teammate, now in the sister team, obviously, it's Nicky Taylor on pole position, Kyle Felvis in 2nd place, Eric Axelson in 3rd, and Jordan Taylor round out the top 4. How do they get away across the line as the lights go out and it's an absolute demon start by Nicky Taylor and Eric Axelson? He can get anything off the line, and he gets himself all the way up into 2nd place ahead of Kyle Felvis. That will not be what Kyle was wanting, or Jordan Taylor indeed, actually, but Nicky Taylor can look at his rearview mirrors and probably not really worry about any of them right now, because he knows that Kyle and Jordan will try and launch themselves onto the back of the Lean Green racing machine, and he can just drive away in the distance. That's what he'll be hoping for anyway. Elliot Dalton-Ayres is in 5th, Jack Smith stays in 6th position, Oliver Gibson in 7th, I think, jumping up one particular place off the starting line as the HFT boys try and fend off the attacking Elliot Dalton-Ayres, who currently sits 2nd in the championship. But all in all, Lewis, a fairly clean start.
Yeah, it looks like it at the moment. Eric's had a good start, though. He's managed to get into that gap. One thing I did notice is he started on 14 hybrid activations available rather than 15, so I hope that's just a visual glitch. But he's already down to 12, so he's been burning it to try and get this gap down to Nicky Taylor, and he's also managed to gap the HFT boys at the moment, so he's going to be hoping he can just sit into that gap and then start to reel in Nicky, hopefully, for Eric.
I was slightly expecting the two HFTs to slingshot each other there somewhat, and one go for the overtake with the other one let them have it to try and catch up to Eric, but maybe that is a tactic that they're holding in reserve a little bit later on as they just go through in a bit of a processional line, just the two of them, obviously trying to hold on to that position. And well, you said that Eric is pulling away, but actually he's being reeled in now, isn't he? Nicky Taylor is pulling away. 1.5 seconds is the tune of his lead right now. There has been a bit of an incident potentially involving Paul Laramie. I'm just guessing on that because Paul Laramie is still down in 16th place, and he's got a massive gap between himself and the next driver in Nathan Smith in 15th. So potentially a bit of drama towards the back end of the field, and Lee Morgan's got a relatively high ping, so I'm hoping that he doesn't cause any carnage right in the middle of the park, because he is in 10th place. Oliver Gibson is in 9th. Here is Oliver Gibson, in fact, just ahead of Lee Morgan and chasing down Andy Carroll, but rear-wheel drive maybe not suiting Thruxton as much as they were hoping, and maybe that's why Jack Smith and Oliver Gibson can't quite get that BMW to work around here, but they have been to a couple of tracks recently. Who's that? Josh Martin going grass cutting and losing a whole host of positions, just pushing it a little bit too hard there, Lewis.
Yeah, as I love to joke with Josh, it's all for the content, it's all for the viewers. It's never an actual mistake, it's all purely for entertainment purposes. Now, I think Josh might have potentially had a bit of a tap or just got it wrong on the exit there, but that's dropped him down to 10th. He's not too far off the pack, so he can still work his way back up. So not the end of the world, but not the best start for Josh there.
I do know a racing driver that was in a particular touring car series somewhere in the world that the clerk of the course sort of pretty much did say that let's keep in mind, drivers, that this is pretty much a show and not an overall sort of race. So if there's a bit of bumping and barging, it is for the show. So you never know. I mean, we're not employing those sort of rules, but I'm just saying that it has happened somewhere in the world without giving too much away. Elliot Dalton is closing right onto the back of Jordan Taylor, and I think I'm just going to point out the irony.
Jordan's round.
Where has Jordan Taylor gone round? Has he gone round, or did he just go straight on? Did he have a clip of the wall? I don't think there was any contact with Elliot Dalton. He's rejoining, and he's going to actually rejoin way behind even Josh Martin. So he's now in 11th place behind Andy Dorman, and Craig Curtis looks interested in having a lunge into the first braking zone of the entire lap. And he has a little bit of a nibble, but it's nibbling the back end, and there's a whole host of nibbling of back ends and front ends and sides, because going through the chicane, there's lots of contact, Lewis, and one of them was involving our championship leader, Jack Smith. Thought that might be Oliver Gibson, but it's not. It is championship leader Jack Smith. He's all the way down to 14th place with Kenny Press and Paul Laramie, the only two drivers that are now behind him.
Yeah, absolute chaos. There was an incident between, I believe it was Andy Carroll and Jack Smith. I don't know who's caused that, obviously, because we didn't see it, but those two were swapping places very quickly as it happened. So I think that's where that came from. And then we did see Jordan clip the wall ever so slightly at the final chicane, so that's why he was dropping down. But ironically, Josh Martin is now up to 5th, so I said it could very easily get better for him, and he's actually gained a place in that lap.
I was going to say, we had Dave saying, come on, Josh, keep us pointing in the right direction. And as I read that, he very much had it in the wrong direction. All of a sudden, Dave went quiet, and he's managed to make it up. Oliver Gibson, though, is not making up any positions. He tried to lunge up the inside. There he is with South Park character. I can't remember what his name is, though. It's Cartwright, isn't it, actually, in the corner of his screen. But there's nearly 2 or 3 wide going through the first chicane. And Oliver Gibson tries to get the cutback on Andy Carroll. Neither of them using the hybrid just yet, because the rear-wheel drive BMW doesn't need it at that particular point in the lap. But Andy Carroll just about holds on to his car. They're going side by side through there. You really don't want to be doing that through Noble, and they just about get away with it. Very brave, very calculated stuff. Good bit of depth perception as well, and leaving each other plenty of racing respect and room as they now go side by side through Church, and that's probably the one corner in the country I would never want to go side by side with someone, and thank God Andy Carroll decided that I was right and he pulled out of the move. Oliver Gibson onto the hybrid, now pulls away as Craig Curtis has a little bit of a nibble at Carroll, but it's going to be around the outside, and that's going to be very difficult to do. And he just about holds on to it, does Carroll, for the time being. But over those curbs, I don't think the BMW really enjoyed that one, as here comes Carroll yet again into the first corner. And the position is surely going to be his. No, that BMW's clinging on, Lewis.
It is just about, but I think Andy's going to have the inside line here, so I think he is going to complete the move. But we're going to see whether Oliver can get a switch back on him now. They're on very different lines through this complex. Is Oliver going to be able to get the run in this final part? No, it looks like Andy's clear, but no, they're side by side again, I think. Andy's using the hybrid to defend, so it's going to be close. And I think he's just about managed to clear him now. As up front, Nicky has indeed ran away to the tune of 3 seconds, as we were hoping he wouldn't, so that we'd have a good race up there for the lead. I'd like to give a little shout out to Lee Morgan, someone we don't usually see much of up in the top 6, but he is fighting Josh Martin for 5th place at the moment.
He is, yeah, very competitive indeed is Lee Morgan right now. Not worried at all about Andy Carroll, Craig Curtis or Oliver Gibson just behind, but they have been falling over each other somewhat, so let's see if that continues or whether those three can actually get their heads together and start moving forward. There has only been 7.5 minutes of this race, if you can believe it. It feels like we've had so much action squeezed into such a short amount of time. Nicky Taylor does seem to be pulling away. By the end of this race, he'll probably have time to go and have a trip to Stonehenge Henge come back and still have the lead. He is well away from it in 4.5 seconds. Nick Eric Axelsson is going relatively quickly, but actually the fight for second place is very close indeed. Eric to Kyle Felders. I'm sure we'll have a check up on that in a little bit once we see if this is a conclusion. No, there we go. The fight for second place, Lewis. Seems nice and close. Elliot Dalton doesn't seem to quite have the pace to keep up with them, but these two, very interested in each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Kyle's slowly reeling in Eric. I think Eric's got a little bit weaker pace than the cars around him at the moment, but we know what Eric's like consistency-wise, so I think he'll be gaining his lap time from being consistent. I think Kyle's actually made a little mistake there. If we quickly move it to the picture-in-picture, he's moved his hand now, but he was definitely moving something with his mouse, because you could see his right hand, which would be his left as you look at it on the screen. He's moving it about, so I think he's trying to alter something that he's seeing on his screen, maybe an app or a setting or something, so he's not fully happy in that HFT machine at the moment, and he has dropped back after that final chicane.
He has indeed. He's not quite close enough to Elliot Dalton to cause many problems, and we will keep up to date with how they're getting on through the rest of the race, of course. We'll keep an eye on that gap and bring you up any updates that we might need to. Fastest driver on that last lap through Sector 2 on the circuit. Anybody at home want to guess? I'll give you 3, 2, 1. That's right, you're wrong. It was Andy Carroll in 7th place, fastest man through Sector 2. I'm guessing using a copious amount of hybrids and slipstreaming to do it, because that is pretty much hybrid country. But the 7th place driver is yet again back on the hybrid. He's gotten past Oliver Gibson. He's trying to get past Lee Morgan, who he said was having such a good race in fighting Josh Martin. Well, I think Lee Morgan is now going to find himself potentially moving down 2 places as Carroll and Curtis get their way through. I mean a bit of a shout out to Craig Curtis as well, to be fair, Lewis. We haven't really spoken to him that much, or about him that much over the course of this season. And again, one of the newcomers to VRRC. He seems to be performing quite well.
Yeah, he is. We've been pleasantly surprised by Craig on a number of occasions. He very nearly got driver of the... I think he did get driver of the round at Brands Hatch. But he's come in and really done quite well for a rookie. Yeah, he's got on with the job. He's had a couple of penalties for incidents along the way, but he's more than happy to own up to his mistakes and try and learn from them. And he's really mixing it with people like Andy Carroll, who have been in VRRC for longer than you or I have. So yes, he's really up there with the experienced guys, and he's having a good fight with them.
I was going to say, I was just having a look, as you know, Lewis, before we went live, actually, and seeing how long have I been commentating on the VRRC, and it's 2 years. I don't actually know the exact date I did my first broadcast with VRRC, but it was 2 years in the League of Champions with the Ginetta Supercut around Mazzano, I think, was my first of since being uninterrupted sort of coverage with VRRC. I think I did do a little bit here and there for another League of Champions TT Cup or something like that, maybe 6 months before, but yeah, no, the Ginetta's 2 years, and genuinely, probably half the grid you see here, well, maybe not today because a lot of them aren't here today, but we do have a few people missing, but genuinely about a third of the grid, I'd say, from this championship were on that grid, 2 years ago. So clearly very loyal to the VRRC way of running things, and it just goes to show that we do run a very tight ship here at VRRC, and a lot of people enjoy this sort of high standard to try and keep our drivers to. Both of the BMWs are running 9th and 10th position, and that's not really where they were hoping for. It's good from Jack Smith, because he was at once upon a time all the way down in 14th position, so the fact he's in the top 10 is fantastic, but we'll ignore them for the second, because there is such an amount of potential crashing that's about to go down between Craig Curtis, Andy Carroll and Lee Morgan. They are throwing themselves left, right and centre at each other, and somehow keeping it sparkly clean. It's brilliant driving, really, from all three of them. I think they've just about held off from each other for the time being, but actually, no, I say that. I think Lee Morgan and Andy Carroll are about to have a little bit of a lunge at each other. No, Andy Carroll shoots that slightly defensive line and holds off the attack from behind for the time being. But really good sort of little to and fromming here, Lewis, as Carroll goes at the inside into turn 1. I think Craig Curtis maybe just a little bit slow through there. Going into the chicane, they're going to try and make it 3 wide. I wouldn't advise it. I wouldn't advise anywhere 3 wide around this track. Craig Curtis throwing a huge amount of minimum speed around the outside, just about keeping tracks of it as Andy Carroll cuts all the way across the corner. So does Lee Morgan. And here we go. The BMWs have finally started to pick up some pace and join in with the fight as well. As Jack Smith goes up the inside through Noble, this is going to be very, very treacherous. You really don't want to be driving a rear-wheel drive around here, because if you get the slightest touch, you will end up spinning around, which is exactly what we saw from them earlier on. Andy Carroll on the hybrid, he was. Oliver Gibson on the hybrid now, and through Church Corner, Jack Smith up the inside of Andy Carroll. Hope for them, hold on to the track just about, but through goes Oliver Gibson.
Yeah, it was a great opportunistic move from Oliver there. He could see that Jack was going for the move. He could see that Andy was offline, and he recognised there was a good chance for him to take that place, and he's managed to... oh no, Lee Morgan's in the wall.
What? Oh, I was taking a sip of water. What's happened to Lee Morgan? Did we see that going through, or did he just do it off camera?
I think we might have caught a little bit of it in the corner of the frame, but I think he had an accident into that final chicane. I don't know if it was assisted by another driver, or he just clipped one of those tyre barriers, but that's put him all the way down to 12th after all that hard work.
Absolutely gutting that for Lee Morgan, because I was very much enjoying seeing that battle develop between himself, Craig Curtis, Andy Carroll, and obviously the 2 Beamers that were joining in with the fight. Josh Martin, in fact, Andy Carroll is now behind both of the Beamers. Craig Curtis is in 6th position. Josh Martin hasn't really had to worry too much about them, but equally, he hasn't pulled away. Considering how hard they've been fighting behind him, Josh Martin, I would have expected a little bit of a bigger gap there, Lewis, but it hasn't really materialised, has it? With 5.5 minutes to go, I wouldn't expect him to be, well, actually... there's a potential that he might get caught here, because Craig Curtis has been very quick indeed. But this is the fight for 2nd place. I look back to my screen and you found us an absolute gem of a battle, haven't you? Because here is Carl Felvers on your screen. Apparently that is his workwear that he's currently... Oh, as he's... Well, I don't know what he's shouting or expletives are about there. I don't think you really need to lip read very well to figure out what was going on, but I didn't really see any contact or anything. Lewis, did you see something?
No, I think they weren't even side by side or anything. He must be complaining about the curbs or something, because he's somehow lost touch with Eric now. He must be shouting at us for focusing on him. Because
yeah,
every time we have, he's lost time. He's lost time every time we've started focusing on him. But he's dropping back even more. So I don't really know what this could be, whether he's got damage from a curb or he's trying to fix something. He's trying to move his mouse around to alter something on the stream, and he looks very unhappy about something. So maybe it's PC issues. He mentioned very briefly at the end of the Snetterton race 1, his PC got a little bit hot, and that he had a bit of a lag spike after the checkered flag, which looked hilarious on the replay because his car just like glitched all over the place and looked like it was being recalled to its home planet or something. But no, it might be a technical problem. The only other option is he's seen that he's going to run out of fuel, and he thinks he's got a fuel save to get to the end, which is going to let Elliott have the place, but he looks so displeased with something.
Yeah, he's not happy at all. It's a bit of a shame. I believe the reason why Kyle ended up driving with us at VRRC is because we met him at Thruxton itself in real life, back when VRRC and Rich used to have the truck with multiple simulators in it. And I went down there and were helping people get in and out the sim, and they were having a go at the BTCC weekend. And I believe Kyle was one of them, one of about 150 people or something like that. But glad to say one of the people that actually decided to invest himself into VRRC, and he's saying that he's saying no to no idea what it is though. Okay, well, it's not fuel saving. He doesn't know what's going wrong basically, and well, he's still in 3rd place. It's not exactly a terrible finishing position, is it, Lewis? Really, he's still ahead of some key championship contenders as well. Obviously Scott Bugner's not here, Oliver Gibson's not having exactly the time of his life today. Jack Smith and Elliot Dalton-Ayres are both behind them, so he's the highest placed championship contender. So I know he would like to get second place, and I know I was saying at the beginning of the broadcast or beginning of the race that he would like to get first. You can't always grab those sort of points. To be on the podium is never something to be sniffed at, and he keeps pulling up to the back of Eric Axelsson, doesn't he? He just doesn't seem to be able to actually do the move, and every time he gets close enough, he falls away. So it's going to have to be a bit of a tricky one. But as I was saying, Lewis, third's not exactly the end of the world. Yeah,
absolutely not. His kind of key rivals, if you like, are Scott Bugner and Oliver Gibson at the moment. Scott Bugner's not here tonight, so this will definitely become his dropped round. And Oliver Gibson is in 8th place, so with the two people he's closest to in the championship, he's ahead of both of them quite comfortably. And then you've got Elliot and Jack. He's gaining a little bit of points on Elliot and quite a few points on Jack. So he's ahead of everybody he needs to be ahead of, because Eric's had a very un-Eric Axelsson-like season. You know, he wins most of the championships he turns up for, and at the moment he's just struggled to get the pace out of it. And Nicky Taylor's had 2 rounds where he's been on holiday, so one of which will have to count as one of his rounds, so he can only drop one of them. So Kyle's got like an extra round bonus on Nicky. So the only 2 people that are scoring more than him at the moment aren't really going to be fighting him in the championship come the end of the season. So I think he has every right to be quite happy about it. But the racing driver in me would completely agree and be annoyed that I'm not winning the race, because that's just how racing drivers work.
I was going to say, and he'll be happy that his mate is winning, Nicky Taylor, of course, but Kyle has seemed to have dropped off by 2.5 seconds now. So, yeah, not the race that he was hoping for, but this is a race that seems to be boiling right down to the wire as we go on to the final lap of this particular round, I believe. Yeah, we've only got 30 seconds left, and Nicky Taylor's only halfway round. So, what can they do for the fight for the top 5? 5th place, Josh Martin. Craig Curtis in 6th, doing a stand-up job, and you're right, he did get driver of the round at round 2, actually, all those weeks ago. Jack Smith and Oliver Gibson are 7th and 8th, and Andy Carroll currently lapping in 9th. But realistically, going on to this final lap, they could come out of the final corner in any different order, as long as they're probably from 5th down to 9th place. I can't imagine any of them cracking into the top 4 unless Elliot Dalton-Ayres has a massive problem, or Eric or Kyle disconnect or something like that. Nicky Taylor certainly hasn't had any problems. He might have a back marker in front of him, but he's going to have a race victory, more importantly, and it's another race 1 victory from pole position. 3rd week in a row for Nicky Taylor. Eric Axelsson comes across the line. It's another podium for the Swedish assassin. There's Kyle Felvers, he may have had problems, we'll ask him afterwards, comes home to take the bottom step of the podium. And Elliot Dalton-Ayres, obviously in the championship running, trying to catch the likes of Jack Smith, has done a fairly decent job in 4th place. Kyle just gaining him on a touch, but they're all gaining on Jack Smith, who comes across the line with Josh Martin in 5th, Craig Curtis in 6th, Jack Smith in 7th, and Oliver Gibson in 8th, with Andy Carroll in 9th place. They didn't change at all going into that final couple of corners, and Paul Laramie rounds out the top 10. And I believe, little fun fact for Paul Laramie, he's been with VRRC since the beginning. And I think Rich says Andy has been as well, but I'm guessing that's Andy Carroll. There are multiple Andys. It could be Andy Dorman. They seem to have both been around forever. It's not Andy McEwen, because he joined after me. But yes, it was lovely to see everybody out there, and a decent race as well. A little bit too much contact here, there, and everywhere. It's a bit of a shame for the likes of Jordan Taylor, who looked like he was having such a good race. But we'll be chatting to 2 of the HFT drivers plus Eric Axelsson on the other side of this break. And we are back with 3, I imagine, quite happy drivers. But though sometimes I assume that, and people end up showing me that you can be unhappy with the podium. But let's wait and see. But first of all, we'll go to our race winner, and it's Nikki Taylor. For the second time tonight, we'll be having a chat to him. For the third time in a row, though, you've come away with a pole position to race 1 victory, Nikki, and that one never seemed to be in doubt. You were a second and a half up within the first half a lap.
Yeah, I don't really know what happened. I kind of just used my push pass as I normally do online, and then just seemed to kind of eke away at a gap, and yeah, just kind of cruised with it and made sure I wasn't taking any unnecessary risks into the last chicane. So yeah, just kept it cool and kept it calm.
I was going to say that last chicane, it can catch you out, not only when you're racing and hitting those barriers and stuff, but obviously that track limits you've got to be slightly wary of as well, haven't you? So was it just a case of using the hybrid just every lap, just a bit sort of not processional, but almost like a test session, or were you still trying to put in those qualifying laps?
To be honest, I knew I was kind of going to be slower because of the chicane. I was kind of giving myself a 4/10 leeway, and I knew with a 4/10 leeway I could still maintain a lead. So I was keeping an eye on that. And when I was using the hybrid, honestly, I feel a load more unstable when I use hybrid in this car around here than what I do without. And I'm seeming to be quicker without it. So to be honest, I don't know if I'll use that many in the reverse grid because I'm seeming to be quicker without them. And at the end of the day, the car handles how I want it to without. So I don't really need the extra pace advantage.
I was going to say, in that race, and I didn't actually have a look and see whether you actually finished with X amount of hybrids. Did you just sort of tend to, once you saw you had the gap, did you sort of give up on it a little bit then? Because by the sounds of it, you are happier without.
I kept using them because I kept having in my head like, oh my god, it will be quicker, it will be quicker. But in all honesty, when I kept using them, after about like 6 or 7 laps, the tyres were already shredded. So by the time I was using them and trying to use them for quick laps, my tyres were already gone. So it was kind of irrelevant. But I maintained it and I made sure I used up all of them so it looked nice. But yeah, no, it was a decent race and I can't really have any complaints.
I was going to say, race 2 then. Obviously, you want to be slightly better luck than your previous 2 rounds. I'm guessing from what you just said about the hybrids then, are you going to be saving them maybe and sort of just trying to get through when the cars are having a little bit of carnage and everybody's quite close, and then as soon as the cars get a little bit strung out, then you start using the hybrid to try and lunge some people?
Yeah, I'll have to see how it is. If I can make the first lap this time, that would be great. And if I can actually manage to make it around the whole reverse grid in a decent position this week, that would also be great. But yeah, I've got no really high ambitions for this race. Just finish it and finish it within the top 10 will do me well.
Well, we look forward to seeing your progress for this one, Nikki. Congratulations on a race 1 victory and your pole position. You never know, we might be chatting to you after race 2.
Thank you, and hopefully.
That was Nikki Taylor. We have second place driver Eric Axelson in the booth as well. Eric, that was a little bit harder for you, wasn't it? Was it a little bit sweaty at times with the likes of Kyle just behind?
Yeah, it was. It was. I had a pretty good start, and then with like Icky head, he's been so fast all season, so. I didn't really like push to try to catch him. My focus was stay ahead of Kyle. Yeah.
I was going to say he sort of caught up, and then we're going to ask him what happened, and they dropped away, and then he caught up again and dropped away again. Were you sort of getting a little bit panicked? Was there a sigh of relief when you saw him drop away, or were you sort of ready for the fight and knew where to put the car?
Well, yeah, I was ready for the fight, and I felt some relief at the same time, of course, when he went out on the grass there. But yeah, we'll see.
Well, we look forward to seeing how you get on in race 2, Eric. We'll let you go and prepare, and we'll have a quick chat to our third place driver, which, of course, was Kyle Felvis. We only have about a minute until everybody starts wanting to be in their seat. So, Kyle, will keep this nice and short. First of all, congrats on the third place. Second of all, what on earth were you complaining about in that sort of last 5 minutes or so? We saw you shouting and throwing your hands about and everything, but we couldn't see anything on the race. That was a problem.
Yeah, so thank you for the congrats. So basically what happened, I hit a curb and it cut my engine out for some reason, so then I lost time. Next thing that happened, I hit a wall. That's why I dropped from Eric massively.
Right.
And the last thing that happened was on the final lap, my headphone cable coiled and pulled out, so I had no audio. So three things went wrong. And yeah, it wasn't the best, and I've sorted all these issues. Well, apart from the curb cutting my engine out, because that's I don't know what was going on there. But yeah, we'll try and do better this time.
I was going to say, you seem to have the pace. Are you confident that you can turn that pace into a podium in the race too?
Yeah, I mean, Thruxton's quite an easy place to get past people, really, because there's not really tight corners. So, you know, touch wood, people will be nice and calm and just be able to go round. So, the only place I'm really worried about is complex and the chicane. Everywhere else should be easy to pass. So.
Well, yeah, fingers crossed you don't have any of that bad luck either, with any technical problems or hardware issues or anything like that. Good luck, Carl, for race number 2. Congrats on that 3rd place.
Thanks, Jack.
Right, Lewis, now we've only got about 20 seconds before we go into race 2. Kept Kyle in here a little bit longer there, didn't we? But I'm sure he'll be able to switch on immediately. What's your thoughts? Very quickly, you got 10 seconds to give us your thoughts on this race.
I think Jordan's going to win it. I think he's got the pace and he's going to pull away. And I think it's going to be carnage behind. But hopefully the carnage won't result in too many DNFs or major collisions, and we'll have some good racing like we did in Pack in race 1.
Yeah, and that's what we're looking forward to. So Jordan Taylor on pole position, and it's Lewis Edwards' favourite for the race victory here. The BMWs get away nice and sharp as well, as we always expect them to, with Oliver Gibson and Jack Smith behind the wheel especially. Jordan Taylor using that hybrid straight off the line and holding on to that race lead. Lee Morgan as well. We wanted to see a bit of an improved finishing position from him. We saw a nice race, but we didn't exactly get to see it all the way through as one of the BMW goes round, and I think that's going to collect about half the field. In fact, it does. Elliot Dalton-Ayres has just about managed to get through. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a safety car. We'll have to wait and see what the steward thinks about that one. But Elliot Dalton-Ayres in 9th place. Eric Axelsson has just about got through. Who was the driver? It was Oliver Gibson. I think that wine may well have just been uncorked for Elaine Gibson. A safety car has been called out. As you can see, some of the drivers have started just about to weave. And that was a bit of a shame, really, wasn't it, Lewis? Because it seemed as they went through the first 2 or 3 corners that everything seemed to be okay, but as soon as you tap the rear end of one of those rear-wheel drive cars, they just switch round on you, and all of a sudden you're facing the wrong way and half the field gets collected.
Yeah, I think it must have been the smallest of taps. Somebody probably broke ever so slightly too late, and then must have just tapped the rear of one of the, I think it was Oliver, that got tapped round. It's so easy to do if you're just millimetres too late on the brakes and you tap the back of that BMW, it's probably going to go round. I think somebody might be getting a time penalty if they've indeed missed their braking point and done that. The safety car is going to be ending, so we're going to see if Jordan can pull away.
Yes, we don't have to worry about any time penalties for the time being. That's for the steward to decide through the week, not for me to worry about just yet, which is the way I like it, to be honest. Jordan Taylor tried to get a decent start, but I have to say, Lee Morgan's kept him very honest there. And although, apart from using the hybrid, I don't think Jordan Taylor really nailed that as much as he would like. And he's had to use the hybrid just to pull away, going through that turn 1, clinging onto the track. Really good bit of driving, actually, to be fair, from Jordan, as he brakes hard and turns through the first chicane. You can see him there on your screen, actually, trying to fight with the wheel just to touch. A little bit further back, just behind what I believe is Jack Smith, is Kyle Felver, versus, is that Andy Carroll in 6th position? Very, very close to each other indeed. No, they seem to have gapped each other. I think it was actually Andy Carroll and Craig Curtis doing battle once more, but Jack Smith, he's done quite a good job here, hasn't he? As we now follow Elliot Dalton-Ayres going side by side with Eric Axelsson. These, one of these guys is a championship contender. Eric Axelsson isn't exactly a million miles away from the from 5th position either, so he's got his own points to try and make up and his own sort of point to make, I suppose, during this championship. It hasn't been one to remember for the Swedish assassin, but he's back and he's hopeful for a little bit better in this particular race. Jack Smith slides his way through on Kenny Press, but then smacks the curb and smacks into the tyre barrier. That is going to be disastrous for Jack Smith, who managed to... Oh, and there's more carnage in the background. What on earth is happening here, Lewis? There's only 2 braking zones. There are only 2 complexes of corners that are even difficult around this circuit. and we seem to have found carnage at both of them during the this second race.
Yeah, I think we have. It just seems like people maybe don't quite get the limit of their car right through that chicane on a consistent basis. You've got to fly through that chicane so quickly, so close to the walls and to the barriers. It sometimes just leads to a minuscule error with very high consequences, as Jack found out the hard way there, and we've seen people all night long ending up in that wall. We saw Lee Morgan and Kenny Press involved in some kind of an incident at the exit of that chicane after Jack had gone straight into the wall. So it's everybody that seems to be struggling with it, all except for Nicky Taylor, who is up to third already.
I was going to say, where is Nicky? He is up to third. You're absolutely right. Carl Felvers is up to second. Jordan Taylor's in first place. So we're having what is an all HFT, sort of, with Nicky Taylor, HFT representation on the podium. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in the YouTube chat will be absolutely buzzing about that. Elliot Dalton-Ayres, yet again, scoring half-decent points. He's in fourth and probably won't be catching the top three, but equally probably won't be caught by Eric Axelsson. In fact, there is Elliot Dalton-Ayres going through your pictures. Oliver Gibson cuts his way up the inside of Eric Axelsson. These two drivers very, very close on pace, it seems, this particular season, but we haven't actually seen them go toe-to-toe or wheel-to-wheel at all, I don't believe. I don't remember commentating on this this particular dynamic very often, so it's quite a nice dynamic to see, though. We've got also Sam Zero flying through on Oliver Gibson there. Now, there is a driver that we really don't see very often towards the top end of this grid, as Oliver Gibson tries to crowbar the gap open, almost making contact with that quick fit advertising board. Through Church, the BMW should have the advantage. I think the Ford thrown a lot of speed through there, and they're going to go 3 wide down into the final corner. My goodness, we've seen crashes already here today, particularly in this race at this final corner. Are we about to see the latest of what is becoming quite a long catalogue? There is Sens from behind as well. The 3 in front managed to get themselves just about in order, as Craig Curtis and Andy Dorman just about get through in one piece as well. My goodness, as they go through turn 1, it's Dorman on the inside of Craig Curtis, gets that move finished and polished. But wow, oh wow, I didn't think that we were going to see the other side of those corners with those 5 drivers. Anyway, Lewis, that was very close indeed.
Yeah, it was. There was all sorts of battling, and we just didn't know where any of the cars was going to end up and how they were going to get through that chicane. But props to all of them. They did a really good job of keeping it clean and keeping it out the wall, and it means that battle can resume again this time round, and we'll see if they can do it again. But surprisingly, Eric doesn't seem to have the same sort of speed that he did in race 1. He's really struggling to make his way up through the pack, and someone like Oliver Gibson and Sam Zero, they seem to have found some pace out of absolutely nowhere. So I wonder if there's something to do with damage here for Eric, maybe, and less damage for Oliver and Sam, because by the looks of it, Oliver just got tapped round and out of the way of the carnage. Maybe Eric got stuck in the middle of it, and that's affected his performance.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I suppose it's probably something we can try and find out. Maybe if the damage is so bad in the DNFs, maybe we can find that out. Well, actually, Josh Martin is no longer in the race. I believe he had computer issues. I think he put on the YouTube chat.
Yeah, he put in the chat that he'd got his game just crashed completely.
Oh, well, maybe he can find out and relay back a little bit of information, maybe, of why Eric is slightly slow as well. Because not only has he just lost the position to Craig Curtis, he then instantly lost it to Jack Smith as well. So yeah, you're absolutely right, and well noticed, Lewis, because it's not going his way at all. Elliot Dalton-Ayres and Sam Zero. I am very impressed with Sam Zero right now. Are you? I mean, Lewis, this is surely one of the highest positions we've seen him, and he deserves to be there because he's fought cleanly, touch wood, and he's got the pace to be in the top 5. Now, he might not have the pace or have the experience to keep off the likes of Oliver Gibson and Andy Dorman, but my goodness, he's having a good time up there.
Yes, we saw a very small flash of brilliance from Sam in the GTV3s in the reverse grid race at Monza. He was really putting up a great fight around there, which is a higher speed track where there is quite a big risk factor with the chicanes. So maybe that's something that Sam really shines at. I haven't really analysed his driving, but that's kind of the common factor between Monza and this is the chicanes and the nature of you have to really think about how you drive through them. I was chatting to him in the debrief and he says he takes a different line to what I do through the final chicane. He takes a much wider line in on the chicane to try and then get the momentum that way. But I told him, try it with the shallower entry where you really drift towards the apex quickly, and then that can help you straight line the chicane. And I said, do your way in clean air, but if you want to make a pass or you want to defend from somebody, make sure you're on the shallow line because you're on the inside. So maybe that one little tip is a little part of what's helping him at the moment. We'll see when they go through the chicane this time.
I was going to say, I don't think he'll be able to attack the shallow line because he's going to have Andy Dorman already ahead of him, and there he goes. Yes, it's a very, you get that quite a lot in motorsport, don't you? You have almost the qualifying line, where it might be the wide one that you were describing, and then you have the racing line, which is, the faster one is probably the wider line, but you are always going to be open for an attack, and you'll never actually attack anybody into the most important braking zone if you always take the wider line, so you need to learn to take both. It's the same around Silverstone, I always think, with Brooklands and Luffield sort of thing. You can take a really wide entry into it and get on the power nice and early, but realistically you're opening the door for someone to lunge up the inside of you, so you don't want that to happen either. But it looks like he's managing to mix the sort of racecraft a little bit better in this particular race, which is nice to see. Adrian Felvis in the YouTube chat has just pointed out, and I'm kicking myself, Adrian, because of obviously Oliver Gibson on his Skype call, which is how we get the picture-in-picture, how we get the driver's view, we might be able to bring it up, has Eric Cartman as his little mascot that he's got going on for him right now. And I was very much thinking, I must remember, if Kenny pressed DNFs, I must come up with Cartman's favourite catchline of who killed Kenny. And I completely forgot. And Adrian has just then sort of picked me and reminded me to it. So credit to you, Adrian. I forgot about it after race one. So yeah, good call by you there. Oliver Gibson getting past Sam Zero there. So all the praise that we're giving to Sam Zero, maybe starting to eke away just a touch, but I still think it's a very impressive drive from him in 7th place. And Oliver Gibson as well, he's actually managed to just about sort of resurrect some positive points out of this particular race, and if he can catch up to the likes of Andy Dorman, then that'll be one hell of an achievement to finish inside the top 5. From what I've heard of the drivers, the BMW doesn't really love Thruxton as much as maybe some of the other circuits we've been to, like Croft and Alton Park and Stetson, like we were a week ago. So it is about time that the front wheel drives had their time to shine, and they are certainly doing that. Speaking of time to shine, the HFT boys, Jordan Taylor, Kyle Felvis and Nicky Taylor. I'm just having a look, so trying to find them on the track map. The gap's closing up just a touch, isn't it? I mean, they seem to all be driving, well, Jordan Taylor seems to be driving with a smile on his face. You picked it, you sort of chirped him for the favourite to be the victor of this particular race, Lewis. Are you gonna, I'm gonna give you a chance to stick or twist here, or are you gonna go for Nicky Taylor or Kyle Felvis? You're gonna keep with Jordan Taylor?
I think I was right at the time to say Jordan Taylor.
I'm well on board with you now. Yeah. That's why I'm giving you the option to stick or twist.
Yeah, because I did not expect Kyle and Nicky to be in 2nd and 3rd quite so quickly, because obviously the carnage, they must have all been at the right place at the right time, or they were the ones that sent everybody off. But either way, they've ended up 2nd and 3rd very quickly after the start, the end of that safety car period. So that's definitely put them right on the back. I think I'm going to put my money on Nicky Taylor getting past both Kyle and Jordan. Ooh. I don't think Jordan will fight them too hard, because we saw in Croft, your favourite track in the world, that Jordan was more than happy to let Kyle go in that second race because he thought Kyle was fighting for the championship and he wasn't. So he decided to let him go. And we saw on the last lap, Nicky was about 4 tenths up on these guys in front of him. So I think he's going to use his really good racecraft to find a way past the pair of these. Because I think it's really, he's going to have to pass Kyle, and Jordan's not going to put up much of a fight for either of them. But I think it's going to be exciting either way.
I was gonna say, I think I personally would expect Kyle to put up a big fight against Nicky. You know, not maybe if it was, obviously it's slightly different when it's your sort of teammate, but they are championship rivals. This isn't a team championship. And Jordan Taylor, I can see why he might let the two pass. But he's new to the championship, and in his debut season, a win would be pretty damn cool, wouldn't it? So I think with 6 minutes to go, he's earned the right to fight for this one and try and keep hold of it if he can. Nicky Taylor is very much on the back end of Kyle Felver, so Jordan might just have to just keep his cool head and let them fight behind them, because if he makes one mistake and lets one of them through, you know that Nicky's going to just push his way through as well. So that would be the end of the hope for Jordan Taylor. Anyway, there is Nicky and Ted alongside him, of course, giving him the updates and giving him the input that he needs from the bed to go a little bit faster. Maybe that is the secret. But you can see going through those chicane, not much of a difference in line, Lewis, but and in fact all of them are pretty equal actually through there, but it's just, I'm wondering, where does he gain the time through the rest of the lap? Obviously it's going to be a bit difficult if they start using the hybrids, because that will be very obvious, but a little bit dab at the brakes there, but they all use a dab at the brakes. It's difficult to see where Nicky pulls 0.4 of a second from.
Yeah, I think where he's pulling the 0.4 is it's not going to be here, because it's comfortably flat out. I think it's keeping the momentum going through that first chicane was quite good. They all did it quite well, so I think it must be this final chicane, because turn 1 and everywhere else is flat out. So this must be where he's gaining the speed. So he floats,
shallow entry.
Floats the speed in very nicely there, but so do the cars in front. I think he definitely carried a much better speed into the corner and sacrificed his exit a tiny bit there, but he keeps the gears quite high. You'll notice he doesn't mind the revs getting quite low, and he'll keep it in third here, as I would expect Kyle and Jordan to be shifting down to second, so maybe that's a little something that's helping him. But he's very smooth on his inputs as well, which you have to be, especially in real life, and it's definitely helping him here.
Yeah, if anybody's wondering as well, on that last lap, they were pretty much all bang on equal. In fact, Jordan was about half a tenth quicker or a tenth quicker, roughly, in the lead. So that's why we didn't see much of an improvement for Nicky. And in fact, on this particular lap, he seems to have dropped away a touch. Yeah, I tend to find whenever I've never driven, I think I've driven the Ford, so the car that Sam Zero is in. And I tend to keep it in a slightly higher gear as well, but I'm not particularly good at front-wheel drive either. I'm not as aggressive with the turning and everything like that as you need to be. I try and drive it like a rear-wheel drive car, which, as you know, Lewis, is not the way you're supposed to drive these touring cars. But it's you can sort of see Nicky very, very smooth. And even though I anchor the steering, and the steering angle I always put into the Ford and everything like that is absolutely massive, I just end up understeering and everything like that. I have no idea how people can be so smooth without understeering, without spinning the front wheels up and everything like that. But Nicky does seem to have found the rhythm and found the way. I'm wondering whether they're almost doing a bit of a Ford at Le Mans style thing, where they sort of line all three of them up to try and get across the line and get a cool photo. Because at the moment, Jordan Taylor and Carl Felvers and Nicky Taylor seem to be quite happy just driving these three as they are.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. In the Le Mans that I've watched, mainly it was the whole Audi procession of they might not have the quickest car, but somehow they won, and then everyone would queue up behind them to get a nice photo with them. Yes. It might potentially be something like that. Another kind of example of that is Mercedes. I think it was an Italian race of some sort. I think it was in 2019. When they were showing off to Ferrari, and they were like, make sure we run in formation to show our Italian rivals, or something like that. Oh, so yeah. That was a cold moment from that season. But it looks like Nicky's shaping for a move, you know. I don't think he's going to sit there.
He's keen, isn't he? It may not be a championship to contend for. He might be thinking that, actually, for Kyle Felvers, that there's a championship to battle for. That may be why he hasn't just thrown one. And I'm not sure. I've sort of been keeping half an eye on the hybrids. Kyle is now using his. I don't think any of them have really used that many hybrids over the course of the last couple of laps since we've been watching them. As we go on board here, I think Kyle all of a sudden is keen on getting that race victory and getting the most amount of points possible out of this race. place. Elliot Dalton still sits in 4th. He obviously is trying to track down Jack Smith, who finds himself inside the top 10 now. He's in 8th, which is not a bad recovery from his perspective. Where is Oliver Gibson? He's in 6th with Andy Dorman just inside the top 5. We do have to start thinking about our driver of the round, Lewis, as well. So I'll let you put your vote in the Discord. And obviously, Rich, if you're listening, you can put your input in there as well, as we don't have Andy McEwen to chat to today. And we'll find out who it is. But Sam Zero is certainly a potential for my vote, just for this particular race number 2. I would have said Craig Curtis as well. Lee Morgan was looking pretty handy in race 1, but obviously it didn't really go his way. Andy Dorman's just got past Elliot Dalton. How's that happened?
We will find out, but...
Yeah, going through the final chicane, actually, it was. Coming out of it, I think, is a 3-way battle. Indeed it is. So Andy Dorman, Elliot Dalton and Oliver Gibson are all pretty much nose to tail in the last... Oh, will this be the last lap? We might get one more out of it, but they're going to go 3-1. There goes through Oliver Gibson on Elliot Dalton. No, he didn't get through, actually, in the end, did he? I thought that was a bit of an ambitious look, but it didn't happen. Andy Dorman running away in 4th place. Elliot Dalton is clinging on to some championship points here. And Oliver Gibson doing all he can to help his teammate out and take away those points from Dalton Ayres. Here we go, down into the final corner, though. It's the first versus second HFT battle of Jordan Taylor leading Kyle Felvers. Kyle doesn't go for the lunge into the final chicane. We're going to come across the line, I think, with just about enough time to add one more lap. It's going to be borderline. In fact, the checkered flag may fly. No, we get one more lap, and I reckon Jordan Taylor was very much hoping that he could lift off the power just half a second longer and get this race done and dusted. But with Kyle Felvers breathing down his neck, he knew that wasn't going to be the case. Nicky Taylor is also very keen to take advantage, I'm sure, of any other, trip-ups that these two might have over each other. Nicky doesn't seem that intense to try and make a move himself, but you can be damn sure he's going to be there to try and pick up the pieces if a mistake is made. Dorman still leads the 4th place battle with Dalton Ayres in 5th and Oliver Gibson in 6th, but we will carry on watching the top 3 as we finalise this race 2 here at Thruxton as they go down towards Church. What have they got in the locker? None of them have the hybrids. In fact, nobody in the top 7 have a hybrid left to their name. Going through Church now, they are nose to tail, and Jordan Taylor is going to have to defend. I think there was a little bit of contact there as Carl Felvers is pushing him through, pushing him over the line potentially. Are they going to let Jordan Taylor have his first victory here at VRRC? He gets into the first apex of the final corner. He gets out of the corner, and it seems Jordan Taylor is going to lead the way for a top 3 of HFT cars. Nicky Taylor in 3rd, and Carl Felvers is the meat and the sandwich. Well done to those 3 young drivers. Waiting for the 4th place battle to conclude, a very far way down the road, it has to be said. They're just about to go through the final corners, and Andy Dorman will be in 4th place. Oliver Gibson looks like he's got ahead of Elliot Dalton Ayres, and indeed he has. So Elliot Dalton Ayres will have to deal with 6th place. 4th was looking like a decent result. 6th, maybe he's probably going to feel a little bit like an opportunity thrown away just a touch, but he still should probably come out of this evening ahead in the championship. We'll have to wait and see how the computer adds it all up. But we have one more advert to go to before we chat to our 3 drivers on the podium, all of which I'm sure will be very happy and a very popular new race winner to the VRRC roster. Jordan Taylor is right round the corner. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. I am going to do this very quickly before we get into the driver interviews, just because I forgot it last time. We're going to do the prize for the viewer of the round before I forget and sign us all out. And we've decided in our Discord that Julie Bradshaw, congratulations, you are going to be the proud recipient, hopefully proud anyway, of an NGK jacket. Mainly because, although Adrian put the comment, you beat me to the idea of the Cartwright's famous saying about who killed Kenny. So well, congratulations, Julie. I'm sure you'll be happy with an NGK jacket. I'm sure Rich will be in touch with Kyle or yourself soon enough to sort that one out. Right, podium time. And of course, like I've just bigged up quite a substantial amount, it is Jordan Taylor, who is our first interviewer or interviewee, actually, I should say, for this particular podium. Jordan, congratulations on the race victory. That one looked like it had you sweating.
Yeah, it's a bit hot. Yeah, I was just I don't know what happened. I think I lagged in race 1. I had damage and I was massively off pace, so I just dropped back to the back of the pack. So I got the pole position for race 2, and then I just tried keeping it as clean as possible, no contact with the barriers or anything. And then there was, I don't know what happened behind, but the safety car got called. And then after the safety car restart, there was a big pile up, and then Nicky and Kyle came through to make it a 1-2-3 for HFT.
I was going to say, after that race 1, you touched on it just then, you had such pace in qualifying. Race 1 looked so promising as well. And then it all went slightly downhill. Did you think that was your evening done, or did you always have in your head that the reverse grid is still there for the taking?
No, Kyle told me to drop back to get the pole position for race 2. So I had hopes because of where the others were starting, such as Nicky and Kyle and Jack, all the quicker lads. And I managed to keep the gap, and but them two caught me near the end. But I managed to keep the gap throughout the race.
I was going to say, what was the discussions like when it came to the last couple of laps as well? Because out of all the drivers, I know they're your teammates, but they're not the two I would want hunting me down, especially the form Nicky's in and the consistency that Kyle seems to have found. Was that a bit scary, or did you have trust that they would stick to their word or whatever was being said on the chat?
Well, at Croft, I let Kyle get the win, so I knew if we ever got in that situation again, he has told me he would let me win. So I had faith in him, but Nicky does what he wants, and luckily he stayed behind.
Well, I was going to say, I'm looking forward to chatting to Nicky a little bit later on and seeing what his mindset was, trying to chase the two of you down. Congratulations, Jordan. I know you're fairly new to the VRRC, but it's always nice to get your first win early. The first of many, hopefully, as well. Congratulations. And is there anybody you would like to give a shout out to before we let you go?
No, I'll shout out the boys at HFT for helping me get better as a driver in general and introducing me to this championship.
Wicked. And we look forward to seeing you in later rounds and speaking to you later. Congratulations, Jordan.
Cheers, Jack.
And next up on the docket is, both drivers actually we've already chatted to today, but Kyle Felvers has done one step better on the podium than he did in race number 1. Kyle, congratulations on a second place. Again, you started using the hybrid, you started putting the pressure on Jordan. Was it ever sort of tempting to give it the lunge, see what happens? Oh, I think we got you muted. There we go.
Yeah, sorry. No, like I said, like Jordan said, he let me pass at Croft. So the idea was, ever in the situation again, he was going to have the win, even if he was behind me in this race, which he wasn't. He did absolutely amazingly. And yeah, I'm so happy for him to get his win. And it was the same for Nicky. We both agreed that we were just going to stay where we are and finish the race, keep it clean, because everyone else seemed to have a nightmare and we all got lucky. So yeah, it was a great race and Jordan did amazingly.
I was going to say, consistency key for you tonight as well. You're picking up those points, obviously, in trying to catch up to the likes of Jack Smith and Elliot Dalton-Ayres, who didn't have the best evening. Staying ahead of Oliver Gibson, Scott Bugner's here tonight, and a few other drivers as well. Is that do you feel like this is a really important evening for you in the run-in to the final finale in a couple of weeks' time?
Yeah, I think it was a great round. I actually had good pace, which is something I've been lacking in the past rounds. I may be up there, but for me personally, I felt that I didn't have the pace. But tonight, I felt like I was on it. Nicky was quicker than me, but you know, this is Nicky. You can't compete sometimes, and with all this ballast and everything, it just plays a factor. But yeah, I actually had pace, and to finish ahead of the likes of Jack and Ollie and all of that is good, and gets us some points. And Jack had an unlucky race, but we move and people get drop rounds, so we'll see how it plays out, and hopefully can do better.
So the championship is looking a little bit tastier, actually, even now compared to what it was at the beginning of the evening, and it was looking pretty good then as well from a neutral point of view. Is Julie Bradshaw a relation of yours, Kyle?
Julie's my mum.
Oh, there we go. So you've come out with a good haul of points, and Julie's come out with an NGK jacket. So all round a pretty good evening for the two of you.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I did enjoy it, and thank you all for putting it on.
Fantastic. Is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go?
Probably my parents and also South Coast Karting, who've supported me with this championship so far. But my parents, like they were saying, they took me to Thruxton 2 years ago, and I sat in that sim in the truck and loved it. And then that night signed up, and you know, the rest is basically history.
Yeah, I was going to say it's great to see people actually turn up to these real life events and then translate it. And obviously the progression we've already said about it quite a lot over the last 2 years has been really fun as well. But congratulations, Kyle, on the second place and the third earlier on as well. You never know, with that pace, with that charge to the end of the season, we might be chatting to you a little bit more over the next 2 weeks.
Cheers, Jack.
Right, and that brings us on to the driver who we've already chatted to quite a lot so far this evening, so I've pretty much run out of things to ask him, but we'll give this interview a go. Nicky Taylor on the bottom step of the podium, but I'm sure he'll have a big beaming smile on his face because finally you've kicked that race 2 curse, Nicky.
Yeah, it took my time. To be honest, at the start of it, I thought I was going to have a stinker of a race, to be honest, because I got away all right, and then kind of had to avoid contact with like the melee at the start or whatever happened. So done that, and then kind of still stuck P11 after safety car. So I thought, oh my god, this is going to be really bad. But then the end, yeah, everything just happened on the start line. I think I went from 11th to 3rd in one straight, and it all just kind of opened up. And then, yeah, with Jordan and Kyle ahead of me, we already said, like, just keep positions where we are. So I was completely happy with that. I still got the fastest lap in that race somehow. I don't actually know how I managed to do that. And yeah, and with a pole and a race 1 win, I didn't need anything more, and I didn't need to do anything else. So the team had a really good result, and that's all I can be really proud of.
When does it come to the point? I suppose none of you three are in a similar position in the championship. Obviously, with Kyle being around about the top 3, yourself obviously having to count a couple of drop rounds, and Jordan not necessarily having the best of luck either. Do you not see in this championship a point where you think maybe, yeah, the gloves are going to have to come off in those sort of situations where, you know, if you could get into the race, like you might get into a situation in the championship where if you took the race win today and you pushed a little bit harder, you could have got those points that might have counted. Is that going to be something that you maybe regret looking back, or do you think that's just how racing goes?
Not particularly, because I screwed my races all throughout from now on. So I screwed my my 2 last races at Alton and at Snet on my reverse grid. So if anything's going to let me down, if I had had better results on them, I literally would have been with Kyle in the championship currently. But to be honest, after missing 2 drop rounds and having them 2, quite frankly, appalling race 2s, to be sitting 6th in the championship, I'm quite happy with. And also it still means I get no excess ballast for brands. So the light car is going to be coming through, and let's try and get another, make it 4 in a row with pole and race 1, and we'll try and do race 2 win this time as well.
I was going to say you might end up at Silverstone with a slightly heavier car, but that's better than turning up at Brands Hatch with a heavy car, isn't it? So, yeah, look forward to seeing how that one goes for you, Nicky. I've already asked you this before, but is there anybody new you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go?
Yeah, just literally all the people that supported me throughout this, my nan, my granddad, everyone else. But yeah, I'm going to Thruxton tomorrow anyway, so this was a great practice because I'm racing my Mini there this weekend. So this is great practice. But yeah, if anyone's there, obviously come say hi. But yeah, this was good practice, and at the end of the day, I think I'm in pretty much the best form I've been in for my racing career currently. So just keep it going.
Well, fingers crossed you can translate that what you've done tonight into the real life as well in the Mini. I'm sure they probably drive similar. They're both front-wheel drive. That's close enough, isn't it? So, yeah, it might as well. But congratulations, Nicky, and good luck for the weekend.
Oh, cheers.
Right, and that is our 3 podium sitters, and a bit of a shout out to our driver of the round as well. You can probably guess by the way I was going on about him in race number 2. I was very impressed with a certain Sam Zero. So congratulations to Sam Zero. Lewis tended to agree with me, and Rich had a vote for a couple of other drivers. So a couple of big honourable shout outs. Andy Dorman did very well, caught Lewis's eye, and Oliver Gibson as well caught Rich's eye. But ultimately, because I'm the one who gets a chat, I've given it to Sam Zero. So that's pretty much the way. It's a dictatorship round here when it comes to the commentary. Yes.
I thought I was the dictator.
Yeah, but you're quiet in the background, Rich. So you know, we keep you in the little cupboard at the back. So no, Rich Hayden, obviously here. Give us your thoughts on that actual evening, Rich, because it was a little bit hit and miss with some of the contacts and everything like that. But ultimately, we did have some good racing.
Yeah, do you know what? Thruxton always creates a bit of a divide, doesn't it? So it's such a satisfying track when you're doing hot laps and there's no other cars around you. But as soon as you throw in the other cars into the mix and you're doing the speed that you're doing with the, you know, the accuracy that you need for this track, you put another couple of cars around you, and that's when we start to see people failing. So, yeah, exciting to watch. I'm really sorry for the guys that had the incidents, but we move on.
We do indeed, yeah. All part of racing. At least you don't have to pay for the real life bill. Put it that way. I'm sure if Josh Martin has a little bit of an incident this weekend, fingers crossed he won't. It'll be hurting the bank account a lot more than if he crashed in this particular evening's race.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right, I'm just having a look at what's coming up next, and I believe we've got the championship table to be having a quick look at. Lewis Edwards is going to bring that up. There we go. I'm even on time with his order of proceedings this week. I'm very proud of myself. Jack Smith is the leader, but only by 3 points now. He has had such a good start to this championship. He's managed to just about cling on to this top step of the championship for the last 2 weeks, where it hasn't really gone his way. Snetterton and tonight. Elliot Dalton-Ayres is second place, slowly clawing that back. He didn't have a particularly enjoyable evening here at Thruxton, but it was good enough to close that gap. But Kyle Felvers was the real mover and shaker. He's now within 11 points of the championship lead and coming on song and in form when it counts right at the end of the championship. Oliver Gibson is in fourth, with Scott Bugner just about in fifth place, but Nicky Taylor hot on his heels after starting to this evening in 10th. He's all the way up to 6th place, and only about 6 points behind the top 5 now, which is, of course, where the prizes start. Eric Axelson in 7th. We had a chat to him earlier on. He said this is, well, he didn't say it, but in the subtext, I think he sort of is willing to forget about this championship, and the sooner the next one starts, the better for him. Josh Martin in 8th, Andy Dorman in 9th. Jordan Taylor just about gets himself into the top 10 with that race to victory here this evening. Joel Lasky wasn't here, is in 11th, and Andy Carroll is in 12th. Place, and we have got what else is going on in the VRRC coming up on your screens there. And Rich says, I'm going to bring you in here, Rich, so you might want to start actually viewing the stream. I'm going to just give you 3 seconds to do that, but there's plenty going on VRRC.
Yeah, we've got our final 2 rounds coming up in the next 2 weeks of the touring car, so it's going to be a pretty epic finish to our championship, as always seem to be. So I'm really pleased it's getting close to the top. It gives us more exciting stuff to watch. So we've got Brands Hatch GP layout. We've already done the Indy layout, which was great fun. GP's a little bit more of a challenge. And then we end the touring car season. I can't believe we're only 2 weeks away from the end, but anyway, we are at Silverstone GP circuit. So a nice big circuit for people to finish the championship on. A couple of time attacks. This week we're running the Brabham GT2 at Silverstone GP, so that's underway, and Eric's already been in there and is loving the Brabham. So by all means, if you feel you'd like to come and join us, it's free to enter, so please come along and join us. And then next week we go on to the Porsche GT1 at the Nürburgring, so looking forward to doing that one as well myself.
Yeah, it's worth noting that it's not the Nordschleife, though, is it? It's the Nürburgring GP loop, which is by far the better track, in my opinion.
Correct. Those that know, Nürburgring is the GP track, and the Nordschleife is the Green Hell.
Yeah, exactly. And the one that takes about, if you're me, about half an hour to finish one single lap of it. So even well, you saw we did this in the Ford the other week. It kept crashing, didn't I? I couldn't get around.
So I was talking about it in real life. I've done a 9-minute 30, which is quite good.
I've never even tried. I wouldn't even bother crashing my car around there. It's not worth the risk. But anyway, yes, that is all we've got coming up for on the VRRC Championship. In fact, no, it isn't. No, it isn't, because we've got one more slide, and it's about the GT500 Championship. Now, this is a bit of a passion project. I know Lewis is quite enthusiastic about this, isn't he, Rich? But this is a very different to what we've done in the past for those sort of filler championships.
Yeah. So we've extended it to be 4 rounds, so 8 races over 4 weeks. We're doing it all in Japan, as it's GT500, which is where Japan's where it comes from. So yeah, we'll do something a little bit different. Sign-ups are going okay. So yeah, quite looking forward to trying these things. I mean, they're epic. They're so fast, but they've got so much aero that they're just amazing to drive. Kind of like almost like a Formula 2 car with a roof on it.
Oh, fantastic. It does sound really cool, to be fair. Is it fixed setup, open setup, semi-fixed, actually?
Semi-fixed.
In the bottom left, yeah. Are they broadcasted as well? That's the thing me and Andy have never actually got to the bottom of.
Well, if you'd been keeping up to date with the messages in the broadcast chat, you know that it is
such an amount of messages in that broadcast chat.
Yes, we are broadcasting the GT500 series.
Right, all the plans that I made thinking we weren't. And we will be back on the 21st of June for the GT500. Right, we are very close to the end of the broadcast. All that is left to do is to say a big thank you to all the drivers, all of you watching at home, as well as Rich, obviously, for putting on the show in the first place. My name has been Jack Oliphant. A massive thank you, as ever, to the super sub, Lewis Edwards, who's been joining me in the virtual commentary box for today. And then I think it was Alton Park the last time you were here. Lewis, any final words from you?
Well, I think what a great round. I think we've seen so many different storylines all coming together in that evening. We've seen the BMWs struggling a bit. Brands Hatch is going to suit them a lot more. They're going to be wanting to recover lost ground. We've seen HFT with bucket loads of momentum now. Nicky's pulled off another really quick race. We've seen Andy Dorman, Sam Zero, standout performances. We've seen a lot. But my final thought is obviously, Andy, if you're watching, we hope you get well soon, and we hope to see you next week if you're watching.
Absolutely, yeah, no, fingers crossed. Mr. McEwen is back with us in a week's time, and obviously for the finale as well in 2 weeks' time. My name's been Jack Oliphant. It's been a pleasure being your host this evening. Catch us in a week's time for more VRRC action.
Woo!